Good afternoon. Mr. Kowalczyk's here with another video for Business Math. And today we kind of have a long video to look at. As we are doing this, there is something I want you to know. This video is just an example. It is not the same problem as your homework. So what you see, you should not be copying down. But what you see is what you should be learning to figure out your homework for today. If you have questions, once again, it's always great to come and talk to Mr. K. Or while watching this video, feel free to pause it, go back and review something. You have freedom to do that. Today we are in section 4-5. And what we are doing is we are going to be comparing a bank statement versus a check register. Another way of saying this would be reconciling your checkbook, or the most famous way and most common way spoken about this process, balancing your checkbook. That's right, folks. We're going to learn how to balance a checkbook today. Before we start doing this, let's take a look and see exactly what we're talking about. First things first, right here is a check register. Hopefully you are all familiar with this, as this is what we learned in section 4-3. We learned about how we had to write down the transaction type and check numbers here. You know, we've got deposits, we've got checks, more deposits, more checks, more deposits going to the ATM. Even an automatic transfer where money is taken automatically out of your account to pay perhaps your cell phone bill. So there are all types of things that are done. In the check register. We of course write the date. We fill out the info for each transaction, and as a reminder, each one of these lines, I'm just going to kind of cross it out, but each one of these lines is known as a transaction. So we put the description down of the transaction, writing down what's going on plus the name of the company. Now, this is a kind of watered down version of it, quickly typed out. We see the different dollar amounts, whether payments were made or deposits were made. And then we see that the balance is updated as you go along. So, as a reminder, this is something you've seen before. But now we're going to come down here and take a look at a document you've not seen before. It's a bank statement, a monthly bank statement. Now, not all bank statements look the same. Not all bank statements look the same, but they do have similar info. They're always going to have the person's personal info. And here we're dealing with Sarah Nunley. We have information about what they started that month or that period with. How much money did they have at the beginning of the month or at the beginning of a period? And then how much money do you end that period with? And normally, these question marks are normally filled in for you. I didn't fill them in on purpose because I want you to understand where those question marks get their numbers from on this statement. In this statement, we have a section called checks. Now, this is how it works. If you have a checkbook and you're writing a bunch of checks, they're not always going to be cashed right away. You might write a check and give it to your cousin, perhaps for his birthday. And your cousin might not cash it right away. He might hold on to it, put it on his dresser. And he might take a few weeks before he goes to the bank and actually cashes it. So, what does that have to do with our bank statement today? What does that have to do with our monthly statement? Well, these are the checks right here, check 206, check 207, check 209, that have cleared. These are the checks that have been processed by the bank. Your cousin's check might not be processed because he hasn't cashed it yet. Same thing can go with deposits. You can make deposits at your bank all the time. Or perhaps the job you work for makes deposits for you. That's what Mr. K has. Whenever he goes to school and earns his paycheck, he doesn't get a check anymore. No, what happens is the school district automatically deposits money into his account. Sometimes those deposits haven't processed yet. These are the ones that have processed, and we even see an interest payment. That means the bank gave you 95 cents in interest. Well, that's nice. You know, if you keep money in the bank, it's going to grow over time. And then over here we have the payment section. The payment section. In the payment section, you're going to have all of the different payments that you have to deal with. all of the different payments that you have to deal with. Once again, right here, that's that automatic transfer that we were talking about earlier. This is a payment to pay your cell phone bill. It looks like we took $80 out for Sarah, but she had a fee for using that ATM. So any payments, anywhere where money's getting taken out, that's not a check. Because our checks are up here, so we don't need to write those twice. So these payments are for payments like automatic transfers, ATM withdrawals, or even debit card purchases. Like you go to Jiffy Lube to buy an oil change using your debit card. That'll be listed in this section. There's one last section that is not filled out, and that's the daily balance section. This is usually filled out. It's usually filled out. And what it shows is how much money you have in the bank on any given day. I left this blank because if you were to have this with all the answers, it might make it a little bit too easy for you to do our homework today. The last document I want to show you is the reconciliation of a bank statement form. Now, before we go any farther, you're seeing the check register, you're seeing the bank statement, and you're seeing this reconciliation of a bank statement form, and you might be panicking. While it looks like there's a lot going on, it's not nearly as difficult as you may think. Pay attention. We'll get you through it. You can pause, you can rewind, you can talk to Mr. K. This form right here is a form that we will use to help us balance our checkbook. We're going to fill in different boxes, and it kind of tells us, if you look at this form closely and patiently go through it, and you'll see what they're asking for. For example, the date. For example, the balance on the check register. By the way, it'd be that number right there. Right here, the balance on the bank statement. That's right there. That's the present balance. And so if you read it carefully and kind of just check to be sure you know what's going on, you're going to be able to fill in these boxes pretty easily. But I'm going to help you with that today. What I've also done is wrote out steps. You might want to write these steps out yourself on your homework today. You might want to pause this video and on your worksheet write these steps out because I think they're very helpful. Step number 1, what we want to do is compare our monthly statement versus the check register using the checkmark system. The checkmark system is very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to put a lot of check marks right in here in that column, but we're also going to put some check marks over here on the monthly statement in various positions. The checkmark system is a way to help you make sure you know what's been processed by the bank and what you've written down. Once again, what's been processed by the bank, we can see that on the bank statement. And what you've written down, we see on the check register. So let's get started. And we'll start over here on the check register. Our very first transaction is a deposit on 11/1. And what we're going to do is we're going to look for this deposit from Valpole Schools for $980. So we'll go over here and we'll try and find the deposit section. And what I'm looking for is a deposit from Valpo Schools somewhere around November 1st. Sometimes it might be November 1st. Sometimes it might not get processed by the bank till November 2nd. And if we're looking over here, we see that right here is that deposit. That's awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little check mark right here, and then I'm going to put one right here. Boom. That's it. Now we move on to right here. Check number 206 on 11/5. It was a rent payment for $550. So now that I'm trying to find it, I'm looking over here in my check section, and I'm looking for check number 206, right around November 5th for $550. Sweet, it's there. So I'm going to put another little check mark right there. And now I can put one over here in this column. Let me get rid of that circle. We don't need that circle. There we go. There we go. Automatic transfer. Automatic transfer. Once again, we're looking for the automatic transfer around November 10th. It's our cell phone bill, and it's for $98.25. $98.25. So I come over here, and I'm looking in the payment section because we're spending money here. We're paying our cell phone bill using an automatic transfer. And it turns out that we see it right there for November 10th for $98.25, and it even says cell phone bill. So I'm going to put a check mark here, and I'm going to put a check mark here. Now, what I'm doing is I'm constantly comparing different sections on my bank statement, and I'm comparing them to the different transactions that I have on my check register. And I'm putting check marks as I go. Do not assume that you're going to put check marks all the way down, because you probably won't. You probably will not do that. You've got to be careful about that. Well, to speed things up, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the answers for this. Even though this is not part of our homework, it's just an example, I'm going to give you the answers. And what happens is we have check marks for everywhere but three. Sorry. We don't have check marks. We don't have check marks for right here, and right here. And you might be wondering, why? Why don't we have check marks? Because we can't find those three transactions. We cannot find these three transactions over here on our statement. We can't find them there at all. We found everything else. We found check 207. We found check 209. We found the second deposit from our school. We found the $100, and we found the $80 ATM withdrawal. By the way, notice this isn't check marked and this isn't check marked. We're not check marking them, not yet. So, what we've just done right now is step number 1. We've compared both the bank statement and the check register. We've compared both of those documents using the check mark system. Next, what we're going to do is write in the date. We are next going to write in the date. And I believe as we look at this, we are supposed to use December. I don't need it underlined. And let's make it just a little bit bigger. December 1st. And let's just go ahead, just for giggles, put in this year. That makes it a little bit easier. The year is currently 2015. So, step 2, write in the date. Step 3, now we start filling out the left side. That's right. We start filling in the left side. To fill out the left side, what we first need is the balance on the check register. So we go to our check register and we find that final balance. It's $3,220.25. So I find that balance. And what I do is I type it out or write it out all nice and neat. Let's see if I can fit it all in here. No, it's kind of small, but there we go. We got it. Boom. So I just write that in there. But as we're doing step 3, I do need to draw your attention to this. As we're doing step 3, we're going to get most of our info from the bank statement. We're going to get most of our info from the bank statement. The only info we're taking from the check register is this total right here. That's it. That is it. So, we've got the check register balance. Now let's go on to deducting bank charges. What I need to do when filling out this box is go over to the bank statement and look for any bank charges, any fees the bank might be charging us. Perhaps we bounced a check. Bouncing a check is when you write a check and spend that money and you don't have the money in your account. That's not good. So they might charge you a fee for that. Maybe they charge you a fee because you don't have enough money in your bank. What I mean by that is some banks charge you $5 a month, $3 a month, a set fee, for not having at least $500 in your account. If you go below $500, they start charging you a fee. So we've got to be looking to see if there are any fees. And it just so happens there is one right here. It's an ATM service fee. So what we're going to do is we're going to write that info out right here. ATM fee. And the dollar amount is $3. That is the only fee. I don't see any other fees, so we can keep moving on. And that takes us now to total bank charges. Well, there was only the one charge for $3. So my total bank charges are $3. Now let's move on to bank interest. Bank interest. I continue to go back to the bank statement to find the bank interest. And if you're looking over here in the deposits section, you see that 95 cents in interest was added to our account. Notice that word add that I'm using. So we write out just a quick little description, and we can just put the word interest. Nothing too fancy. And we've got to put 0.95, 95 cents. 95 cents. And then right there, that's the only interest. So 0.95. The last thing we need to find on the left side, the last thing is the adjusted check register balance. Now, before we do that, I want to draw your attention to two magic words. First off, deduct and add. We need to deduct our bank charges. You don't have to put this, but you kind of have to imagine that there's a subtraction sign right there for the $3. And adding bank interest, you have to imagine that there's a little plus sign right there. So if you take your handy dandy calculator out, you can do the math and find that if you take $3,220.25 and you subtract $3 and add 95 cents, you get $3,218.20. That's our final balance for the left side. You only have to show me the stuff in blue. I repeat, you only have to show me the stuff in blue. I just noticed that there's a mistake over here. If on your homework it does not say deduct outstanding checks, let's go ahead and write that in. And make it a little bit bigger. It should say that right there. So if it doesn't say that on your paper, go ahead and write that in. Alright, so we've done the left side. You only need to write the stuff in blue. Let's go ahead and do the right side now. Let's do the right side, which would be number 4. And with step number 4, I do remind you, you're going to get most of the info from the check register. Most of the info from the check register. But to begin with, we need the balance from the bank statement. Where is the balance from the bank statement? It's right here. You're going to fill that in right there. So, you write it in. And that balance is $2,334.20. Now that we've got the balance, we need to add something known as outstanding deposits. If you've never heard of the concept of outstanding, well, here's the definition. An outstanding deposit is a deposit that has not been processed by the bank yet. It's not been processed by the bank as of this moment, or at least as of the time that the bank statement was printed. So what we're looking for are any deposits that did not show up on this bank statement. How do we find them? We go back and look at our check register. So what you're looking for over here is any deposit that doesn't have a check mark. If it does not have a check mark, then we're going to fill it in this box right here. And it just so happens there's one. Right here. This deposit is missing a check mark. So what we'll do is we'll put down the date, which it's 12/1/15, December 1st, and we'll put in the dollar amount, $980. Right here, we fill in the missing dollar amount, and right here in this next box right here, It's asking for the subtotal. It's asking for the subtotal right here. Well, how do we find the subtotal? Once again, we use the word add. That's right. We use the word add for adding outstanding deposits. So what we're going to do is we're going to add up the original balance on the bank statement. Oops, thought I had it set up. There we go. With that 980. And what we get is $3,314.20. There we go. Now it's time to deduct outstanding checks. Outstanding checks are those checks that have not been processed by the bank. And if we look up here, we find two of them. Check number 208 and check number 210. They don't have check marks next to them. Once again, the check mark system's wonderful because it helps show what's been processed, and ones that don't have check marks show us that they need to still be processed. And so right here, there are two checks we need to write out in this section. So the first check is 208. Check 208 for $50. The next check is 210 for $46. And then we add them up, because right there it's asking for the total outstanding checks. We total those up, and then we are almost finished. Hopefully by this point you know what the last step is. Hopefully you realize that now we have to deduct. That we have to deduct our outstanding checks from our subtotal right here. So we do some subtraction, and we get $3,218.20. And that leads us to our last step. Our last step is an important step. Once the form is complete, both of the balances at the bottom of that form should equal. And hopefully you notice that these two numbers do equal. Now let me warn you when doing your homework, don't just write in the balances and make them equal if all this stuff up here is wrong. I go through and grade all of it and look at all of it. I don't just look at the balances. So make sure you're doing all the steps properly. Review what you need to review, and if you have questions, talk to Mr. K. Thanks so much, and until next time, have a good day.